lattice enthalpy, and the second term was bond enthalpy. So these terms may be confusing to you, that the meaning is same, still we write them as two different terms, okay, but they have the same meaning. Only difference is this, that bond enthalpy is a term used for covalent bonds and lattice enthalpy is a term used for ionic bonds, just like formula mass and molecular mass, okay. So but the meaning of both is same, that amount of energy required to break the bond between 1 mole of a molecule of that particular compound, okay. And whether we say it 1 mole or not, we know that what formula we write on board. If I write H2O, it appears to be 1 molecule, but actually we are talking about 1 mole. So whether we say it in the definition or not, but that is actually the amount of energy required to break the bond in 1 mole of a substance, because this is 1 mole, not 1 molecule, okay. So now if the particular molecule is made up of only 1 bond, for example if I see HCl, okay, O double bond O, or I write O2. So there are only 2 atoms which are joined together to form a molecule. So in such cases the bond will be broken only once. Whatever amount of energy is required to break the bond, may be single, may be double, but once only the bond will be dissociated between the combining atoms. But if the molecule is made up of more than 2 atoms, in that case 2 bonds are not broken in single step. For example, when H2O dissociates, then in one step H positive separates and OH is left, and then in the next step OH negative separates as O and like this, okay. So 2 steps are involved in molecules which have more than 2 atoms. So in this case there will be some energy to break this first bond, and in that then there will be some energy required to break this second bond. So in those cases where more than 1 bond is present, always average bond dissociation enthalpy is considered. For example, if I write the data for these 2, values are not needed, but just to understand it we can write the values. For example, for the first step, amount of energy required is 502 kilojoules per mole. And for the second step, the amount of energy required is 427. See, here in the first step also a bond between H and O is broken. Then the amount of energy required is 502 kilojoules per mole. In this case, because we know the structure of water is O, H and H. So in the first case, 1 bond between O and H is broken. In the second case, the another bond between O and H is broken. But in both the steps, the amount of energy required is different. So it will always be the case whenever there are more than 1 bonds to be dissociated, and maybe that these are identical type of bonds. This bond is also OH bond, this bond is also OH bond, but the amount of energy required for these are different. They will always remain different in all the molecules. The reason is this, that when this bond is dissociated, that time this O is connected to 1 more H. So the environment of this O is different. But when this H is removed in the second case, that time this O is not connected to anything else. So the environment of O is different in the second case. In first case it was different, in the second case it is also different. So the amount of energy required to break these bonds will also remain different. Okay. So what you will do, what will be the bond dissociation enthalpy of water molecule? It will be 502 plus 427 divided by 2. This will be the mean or average bond enthalpy. Okay. So in case of molecules made up of more than 2 atoms, always the bond dissociation enthalpy which we consider is always average bond enthalpy, or it is also known as mean bond enthalpy. Okay. So this was the topic of lattice enthalpy, or so method of finding both lattice enthalpy or bond enthalpy will be same. As we found bond enthalpy, same way we will find lattice enthalpy also. Okay, after this, another term which is used is bond order. Bond order. Now what is bond order? Bond order is the number of bonds between two atoms. This is known as bond order. So bond orders are 1 order, 2 order, 3 order. Means if F is connected to F by a single bond, so the bond order is 1. O is connected to O by double bond, so the bond order is 2. And if nitrogen is connected to another nitrogen by 3, so the bond order is 3. We know that at the most we have triple bond between two atoms. So we have bond order named as 1, 2 or 3. Okay. So what is bond order? The number of bonds which are present between two combining atoms is known as bond order, and its value can be 1, 2 or 3. Okay. This is again a small term which will be coming again and again. Then bond angle. What is bond angle? See, actually what we make a molecule does not appear like that. If we make water molecule as HOH. So this is actually not the shape of water molecules, but we make them like this because whatever bond is made between them, we know that oxygen is an atom. Oxygen is an atom, so it will have which type of structure? S orbital will be there, P will be there, then D will be there. So like this, the structure is actually different what we consider. So it is different from that. Okay. Now, when bond between O and H is formed, then what happens? We know that when H and O are forming bond, that time what is there? Oxygen is having which orbital vacant? Oxygen has orbital vacant according to its configuration. Oxygen atomic number 6, so it will be having atomic number 8, distribution 2 and 6. So which shell it is occupying? Second shell, 2s, 2p4, and the structure of 2p4 is 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay. So these two orbitals of oxygen are vacant, have capacity to accommodate one electron more. So what it is doing, that these p orbitals are overlapping with s orbitals of H, because in case of hydrogen, what is the structure? Atomic number 1, 1s2, that means 1s1, and only one electron is present in S. So this and this can overlap to become paired sharing of electron. This and another hydrogen, this is one hydrogen, this is another hydrogen. So this and second hydrogen can overlap to complete this, and this is overlapping with this to form the bond. Actually this happens. So what is happening here, that p orbital of oxygen is overlapping with s orbital of hydrogen. Actually this happens. Another p orbital of this oxygen is overlapping with s of hydrogen. So actually what happens? This is oxygen, this is one of the p orbital, suppose this one. Then another p orbital will be like this. So actually the shape of orbitals are like this, and according to that, when they overlap, there is some gap between the overlapping orbitals, and this gap actually is known as bond angle. Or you don't call them gap, you can say that how they are oriented in the three-dimensional space, that gives the value of bond angle. Suppose we talk about HCl, we talk about O double bond O. There are two atoms only making bond, so there is no possibility to have a bond angle. Bond angle will only be present when there are number of atoms combining are at least 3, or more than 3 are also possible, but at least 3 are required to have any sort of bond angle. Okay, so in three-dimensional space, how the orbitals which are overlapping to make bonds are oriented, that gives the value of bond angle. So bond angle is the angle between two overlapping orbitals of the central atom. So this gives the value of bond angle. Then bond enthalpy, bond angle, bonds. Okay. Now the next term is bond length. If two particular atoms are combining to make a bond, so the distance between the centers, if this is hydrogen and this is, when they are making bond, so they will be overlapping. This is chlorine. So when hydrogen and chlorine have made a bond, so the distance between the center of the two atoms which are making the bond is actually known as bond length. This is bond length. Distance between the center of, or you can say the center of the nuclei of the two combining atoms is known as bond length. Larger is the size of combining atoms, more is the bond length. If the size is bigger, definitely the bond length will also be longer, because more big size, the radius will also be more. Okay, so this is bond length. So bond angle, bond length, bond dissociation enthalpy, bond order. These are the terms which are used again and again with these. Okay, now comes polarity of the bond. Okay, when a bond is made between two different atoms which differ in their electronegativity values. For example, if I say hydrogen and fluorine, they make bond. So they are differing from each other in the values of their electronegativity values. Fluorine has electronegativity value 4, hydrogen has 2.1. Some of the values we need to remember for these elements. So when they have difference in their electronegativity values, they have some value for dipole moment, because they will make a dipole. Two poles are there. What is dipole actually? When any molecule has two poles, opposite poles, then it is a dipole. So the same happens if the polarity of the two combining atoms is different. If you talk about bond between O and O, then this will not create a dipole until it has some dispersion forces later on. But initially this particular molecule is not having dipole. F and F is not having a dipole. Okay, so when two combining atoms differ in their electronegativity values, then only they can create a dipole, and this is known as polarity of the bond. Now when this molecule is polar, so the direction of the dipole moment will be towards the more electronegative element. Out of these two, fluorine is more electronegative, so it is shown by the head of the arrow towards the more electronegative and tail towards the other end. Okay, in this bond, fluorine will acquire partial negative charge and hydrogen will acquire partial positive charge. Now, dipole moment is denoted by mu, and mu is given by Q into D, where Q is the charge present between the particular bond, and D is the distance between these two. Now, what is the value? What will be the value of charge? Whatever amount of partial positive charge is available on hydrogen, the same amount of negative charge will be present on fluorine atom. Only the sign will be different because fluorine is pulling the bond which is present between them with force. That much amount of negative charge is acquired by this, as much it is pulling. If it is more electronegative, it will pull more, so it will acquire more partial negative charge. So what value is of partial negative? The same value will be for partial positive with opposite sign. So that charge multiplied by the distance of separation. Stronger is the bond, less is the distance of separation. Smaller is the size, less is the distance of separation. So mu is given by product of Q into D. Debye is the unit for dipole moment, D-E-B-Y-E. Debye. Okay. 1 Debye is equal to 3.3 into 10 to the power minus 30 coulomb meter. Minus 30 or plus 30? Minus 30. 3.3 into 10 to the power minus 30 coulomb meter. Coulomb for charge and D for meter for distance. Though no calculations are there regarding dipole moment, but this much is required to be known. Now, dipole moment is a vector quantity. So, for finding out the value of dipole moment for a particular molecule, because it is a vector quantity, direction will also be taken into consideration. So, because of the direction being taken into consideration, it's not necessary that if we talk about particular bond between H and F, then it will have some value of dipole moment. Okay, always. If we talk about C double bond O, carbon dioxide molecule, C double bond O. Now, in this case, carbon and oxygen have different value of electronegativity. Oxygen is more electronegative as compared to carbon. So, the direction of dipole will be like this. But because in this molecule, because this is a symmetrical molecule, this is a symmetrical molecule, okay, linear, this is a linear molecule when the geometry is symmetrical. Geometry is symmetrical means having a proper geometrical shape, trigonal, planar, triangular shape. Okay, if a particular geometry is there, then in that case what happens, if this bond C double bond O has certain value for dipole moment, then the equal value will be there for this bond also, because this bond is also the same bond, but these are they are equal and opposite. So the net dipole moment for this molecule is 0, because the value of this bond cancels the value of the other bond. So for symmetrical molecules, the value of dipole moment comes 0. So by knowing the dipole moment value of particular molecule, we come to know that whether the geometry of this molecule is symmetrical or not symmetrical. Now, for example, another example we'll take BF3 molecule. There are 3 bonds. So when 2 bonds are there, like in CO2, so central atom, 1 bond this side, 1 bond this side. Now this is central atom, we have 3 bonds. When 3 bonds are there, the geometry is trigonal and planar, because all are in one plane. So this geometry is called trigonal planar. F F and F. Angle 120 degree. This angle is 180 degree. 120 degree, this also 120 degree, this also 120 degree. This is planar geometry, trigonal. Now in this case also, all the three bonds are same. BF, BF, BF. Fluorine is more electronegative than boron. Direction of dipole will be this, this and this. Now, we have not to do the calculations for dipole moment. Only we have to know that when they are added, okay, the vector addition is done, and when the value of this bond comes after vector addition, so this value comes, the value of the resultant of the two bonds BF and BF, two bonds are there, the resultant after vector addition for this bond comes equal and opposite to this bond. Okay, we have not to do calculation, but for symmetrical molecules it happens that the resultant of the vector addition of these similar type of bonds comes equal, and already the direction is opposite, so it comes equal, and because it is opposite, so they are cancelled out, and mu for this molecule is also 0. So whenever there are similar type of bonds, similar bonds means BF, 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 all bonds are made up by same atom, fluorine, 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 chlorine, chlorine, chlorine. If instead of fluorine there is chlorine, then in that cases, if the geometry is symmetrical, then always the resultant of the two bonds comes equal and opposite to the other one, and the dipole moment value comes 0. So whenever symmetrical geometry is there, CCl4, all chlorine. If it is in case of this BF2Cl is there, suppose two are fluorine and the third one is chlorine, then mu will not come equal to 0. This we have to remember, that it will come only equal and opposite in a symmetrical structure if all the three atoms or all the bonds which are there are made by the same type of atom. CCl4, carbon having 4 bonds. When 4 bonds are there, the geometry is tetrahedral. Again, tetrahedral is a symmetrical geometry. Means whatever geometry is decided according to the number of bonds is a symmetrical geometry. But always geometry are not symmetrical. This we will see further when we will come to the next theory. So in all those cases, the dipole moment will not come 0. But if it is symmetrical structure and all bonds are made by same atom, then it will come 0 for those type of molecules. Okay. So in CCl4 also geometry is tetrahedral, so mu value for this molecule also comes 0. So for all molecules which have symmetrical geometrical shape and have similar bonds will always have the mu value equal to 0. Then the bond between sodium and chlorine is a ionic bond. This we all know. This bond is a ionic bond. But after studying the various bonds, it was found that all covalent bonds have partial ionic character. Means if a bond is a covalent bond, as the bond between H and Cl is a covalent bond, example of covalent bond. So a covalent bond is a bond in which the shared pair of electron is pulled by the more electronegative and it acquires partial negative and the other acquires partial positive. This is a covalent bond. But suppose if the electronegativity difference is too high, that this atom, not chlorine, suppose if it is HF, then what happens? Because it is more electronegative, so it carries with it this pair, and instead of partial negative it becomes H positive and F negative. Complete separation takes place. So the ionic bond is extension of covalent bond when the electronegativity difference is too high, that the more electronegative atom carries the shared pair towards itself, not shared pair. If we actually in ionic bond, what happens? The pair is never shared, it is always donated, means one of the atom gives it and the other one accepts it. But if we try to understand it in that manner, that if this shared pair is pulled so hard that it is carried by anyone and the bond between the two is broken and they separate out as positive and negative. So it was assumed that every covalent bond have some partial ionic character. Means if the difference of the electronegativity is increased so high that if it is more than a limit, then that particular bond which was covalent now can start acting as ionic bond. Okay, though it will not act like that, but we can say that if the both the bonds which we are talking about are not actually different, they are intermixed in each other. If the electronegativity difference is high, then that bond is known as ionic bond, and if the electronegativity difference is less, then the bond is known as covalent bond, because it is just being shared, not pulled by any one of the atom. Similarly, when it is said, then it is also true that all ionic bonds have partial covalent character. Okay, what does this mean? That all ionic bonds have partial covalent character. Means a bond is ionic between Na and Cl. Why? Because Na acquires positive and chlorine acquires negative charge, because chlorine takes the electron of Na with it to complete its octet and sodium gives its electron. But if the two atoms which are forming a bond are not that much electronegative that the complete transfer is taking place, then that bond will act as a covalent bond. Okay, so both the type of bonds are formed in different manner, but if we look at a bond which is formed between two atoms, we can say that the difference between covalent and ionic bond is this much only, that a bond is there in between the two. Don't be confused with this, that are the bonds formed different way just like this? No, they are formed the same way as we have discussed, that NaCl, if a bond is formed between NaCl, complete transfer of electron of Na will take place to Cl and Cl will accept it. If a covalent bond is formed, a sharing is done, but definitely the shared pair is pulled more towards the more electronegative. So if we try to understand it in that manner, that if that pair which is pulled towards more electronegative, if it is pulled too much, then it will become a ionic bond. So we just want to tell that they are mixed with each other. So NaCl bond is ionic, it will always remain ionic. It is not going to become a covalent bond. We are talking that covalent bond is also present in a bond which is visibly ionic if the electronegativity difference is less. For example, if we talk about lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium and cesium. Now in this series, if we see, we know that all these elements, these are present in group number 1 when they combine with elements like fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine. Then because of vast electronegativity difference, the bond between sodium and fluorine or sodium and chlorine is example of ionic bond. Okay, but the first member of each group, lithium fluoride, is covalent in nature, not ionic. You know this thing, that the first member of each group, even though the electronegativity difference is high, they form the bonds which are having covalent character more than ionic character. So for this to understand, we were talking about all these things. So what happens? This rule, what we are discussing, that all ionic bonds have partial covalent character. This was given by a scientist, Fazan, and this rule is known as Fazan's rule. Okay. Now, how this is explained? Okay. Now, lithium and chlorine, suppose they are making a bond, because of the small size of cation. In this group, the smallest size of cation is of lithium. So when the size of cation is too small, or the charge on the cation is too high, for example, lithium is 1 positive, okay, then beryllium is 2 positive, aluminium is 3 positive. So if we talk about these three, or we talk about this particular group, then this is having a small size. This is a small sized cation. So when cation is of a small size, then it has high polarizing power. Means on one hand, what we want to say, that a bond between lithium and chlorine is ionic. If it is ionic, suppose, then what should happen? Chlorine, being more electronegative, take this shared pair of electron towards itself, and it should become Li positive and Cl negative. This is simply ionic bond. But at the same time, when the size of cation is small, then it has high polarizing power. Polarizing power means the electron cloud of this chlorine, which is bonded to it, there is an electron cloud because it has how many? 7 electrons. So electron cloud means electrons are present. So when cation is of a small size, it has power to pull this cloud towards itself. Means on one hand, chlorine is dragging its electron to just form negative charge, just like lithium positive and Cl negative. But on the other hand, when the size of cation is too small, then it has high polarizability and it causes this cloud to attract because of its high charge. Small size gives its high charge, or you can say high pulling capacity, because small size, that means closer to the nucleus, so it pulls the cloud towards itself. So it wants to go away to form ionic bond, but it is pulling towards itself to not allow it to go. Okay. Similarly, on one hand, when the cation is smaller, so it has high polarizing power. If we compare these, lithium, beryllium, aluminium, so aluminium has the highest charge, so its polarizing power will be highest out of the three. If we talk in the group, then lithium will have highest polarizing power, so its compounds will be more covalent as compared to this. If we compare these three, then the compounds of lithium will be least and aluminium will be highly covalent with others. Okay. Now, similarly, as the positive charge is size of cation is small, then polarizing power is more. Similarly, if for example, fluorine, chlorine, bromine and iodine are there, so the size of iodine is the biggest. This is bigger in size. More is the size of the particular atom, then more away it is from nucleus. This is the nucleus of iodine. More away, that means the size of the atom is big. It is the cloud of this is easily pulled as compared to the cloud of fluorine. So if lithium is pulling fluorine and lithium is pulling iodine, then it will definitely be able to pull iodine more as compared to fluorine because of its big size. So this is known as polarizability. This is polarizability of iodine. So if lithium forms compound with fluorine and lithium forms compound with iodine, out of the two, lithium iodide will be more covalent in nature. Okay.